Chaos. It's the nature of the world we live in. A world flooded with information, uncertainty, and the constant hum of possibilities. We are surrounded by a whirlwind of thoughts, most of which are beyond our control. And yet, in the middle of this, there are those who can walk through it all with their minds clear as still water, unmoved by the storm. They are not untouched by the chaos, but they have learned to master it. These are the Stoics. We are no strangers to overthinking. The doubts that linger, the fears that paralyze, the countless what-ifs that loop endlessly in our minds. But if we are to live well, if we are to thrive, there must be a way to cut through this mental fog. And for thousands of years, Stoicism has offered a path, a way to master mental clarity even when chaos surrounds us. The weight of overthinking. Overthinking is nothing more than our mind's attempt to control the uncontrollable. We analyze, we predict, we forecast every possible outcome, hoping to find certainty in an uncertain world. But here lies the paradox: the more we try to control what we cannot, the more we lose control of what we can, our own minds. The Stoics understood this dilemma deeply. As Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. The external world will always be chaotic, it is indifferent to our desires. But the internal world, the realm of our thoughts, emotions, and actions, that is where true control lies. The core of Stoic wisdom, distinguishing what we can control. At the heart of Stoicism is a single, vital principle, the dichotomy of control. The Stoics believed that life can be divided into two categories, things within our control and things outside of it. This is not a trivial distinction, it is the key to mental clarity. In his meditations, Marcus Aurelius reflects on this constantly: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This teaching, though simple in nature, provides the foundation for a life free from overthinking. When we allow ourselves to dwell on the uncontrollable, on the opinions of others, on the outcomes of situations, on the past or future, we are willingly giving our peace away. We are chasing shadows, hoping to catch hold of something that is beyond our reach. But when we shift our focus to what is within our control, our thoughts, our actions, our responses, we reclaim our power. Embrace the present, anchoring in what is. A crucial part of overcoming overthinking is to ground ourselves in the present moment. The Stoics were masters of this. Seneca, in his writings, urged us to stop dwelling on the past or anxiously waiting for the future. True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future. The mind, left unchecked, will wander into the past, replaying mistakes and missed opportunities, or project itself into the future, creating scenarios that may never come to pass. In this constant mental time travel, we lose sight of the only moment that truly matters, the present. To live like a Stoic is to cultivate presence. To recognize that the present moment is the only reality we have control over. When we immerse ourselves in the now, we sever the ties that overthinking has on us. We begin to realize that clarity is not something to be found in the future, but something to be created in the present. The power of acceptance, amor fati. Much of our overthinking stems from our resistance to what is. We fight against the reality of our situations, hoping that by mentally wrestling with them, we can change them. But the Stoics teach us something radically different. They teach us to embrace what is, to love our fate, or amor fati. Nietzsche, inspired by the Stoics, wrote, "My formula for greatness in a human being is amor fati. That one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity." This concept, deeply Stoic in nature, calls for us to not merely accept the events of our lives but to embrace them fully. In every moment of chaos, there is an opportunity to practice a more fatty. Instead of resisting what is, we can choose to align with it. Overthinking often arises from the friction between what we want and what reality presents. But when we dissolve that friction, when we say to ourselves, "This is what has happened, how will I respond?" we take back control. We regain clarity. The strength in letting go. One of the greatest challenges we face is letting go of the need for certainty. We want to know the outcome. We want assurance that things will turn out the way we hope. But life offers no such guarantees. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus reminds us, some things are up to us, and some things are not up to us. This simple truth is profound. To live well, we must relinquish our need for certainty and instead embrace the uncertainty of life. This is not a call to apathy or indifference but rather a shift in focus. We are no longer bound by the need to control outcomes but are free to focus on our actions. Letting go is not about giving up, it's about freedom. Freedom from the constant rumination that overthinking brings. When we let go of what is beyond our control, we free ourselves from the burden of trying to predict, control, and manipulate the future. Instead, we focus on the here and now, on living fully, authentically, and wisely in the present moment. Mastering the self, the true source of clarity. In the end, the greatest battleground we face is not the external world but the internal one. The Stoics understood this deeply. They recognized that mental clarity is not a product of external calm but of internal mastery. Seneca, in his letters, writes, "He suffers more than necessary, who suffers before it is necessary." Overthinking, at its core, is self-imposed suffering. It is the mind running wild, imagining troubles and challenges that have not yet, and may never, occur. To stop this cycle, we must master the self. The Stoics practiced this mastery daily through reflection, meditation, and constant self-awareness. They trained their minds to remain calm in the storm, to stay centered in chaos. Marcus Aurelius, in his private writings, frequently reminded himself to return to his own values, to anchor himself in virtue even when the world around him was in turmoil. This mastery is not about suppressing emotions or pretending that challenges do not exist. It is about responding to them with wisdom. As Epictetus taught, we cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. The role of virtue, guiding our thoughts. At the core of Stoicism is virtue, the idea that a life lived in accordance with virtue is the highest good. For the Stoics, virtue was the guiding principle that shaped every thought, action, and decision. It was the compass that led them through chaos and uncertainty. When we anchor ourselves in virtue, we no longer need to overthink. We no longer need to worry about the opinions of others, about the outcomes of situations, or about the chaos around us. We simply ask ourselves, what is the virtuous thing to do, and then we do it. This simplicity cuts through the noise of overthinking. It gives us clarity. It reminds us that the only thing that truly matters is living in accordance with our values. The rest, the outcomes, the opinions, the chaos, is irrelevant. Embracing impermanence, memento mori. A central practice of Stoicism is the contemplation of death, known as memento mori. This might seem morbid to some, but for the Stoics, it was a powerful tool for gaining clarity. By reminding ourselves that our time is finite, we strip away the trivial concerns that often consume our minds. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This reminder of impermanence sharpens our focus. It cuts through overthinking by forcing us to ask, if I were to die tomorrow, would this worry matter? Would this thought, this fear, this anxiety still hold power over me? When we embrace the reality of our own mortality, we free ourselves from the endless loop of overthinking. We realize that much of what we worry about is insignificant in the grand scheme of things. And with that realization comes clarity, a clarity born of perspective. The call to action, mastering clarity in chaos. We are not passive victims of our thoughts. We are not prisoners to the endless loops of overthinking that grip our minds. Like the Stoics before us, we have the power to master our minds, to cultivate clarity, and to rise above the chaos. But this mastery does not come easily. It requires practice. It requires discipline. It requires a commitment to focusing on what is within our control and letting go of what is not. It requires us to cultivate presence, to embrace uncertainty, to live in accordance with virtue, and to remember that our time is finite. The path is not easy, but it is worth it. The Stoics have shown us the way. They have walked this path before us, and their wisdom is as relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. The chaos of the world will not stop. The external noise will not cease. But we can find clarity within it. We can master our minds. We can live as the Stoics did, with self-control, fortitude, and a calm mind, even in the midst of chaos. This is the challenge. This is the opportunity. And this is the path to true mental clarity.